You clicked a link on a website and a small grey window appeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then came the word an entire generation learned to fear: buffering. The percentage climbed. The audio began, stopped, and began again. If it was video, the picture was barely larger than a postage stamp. Faces dissolved into blocks, motion became a sequence of guesses, and one bad telephone connection could turn a concert or news report into a frozen image. But in the 1990s, this was not a failure. It was astonishing that it worked at all. Long before Netflix, Spotify, Twitch, or YouTube, RealPlayer showed millions of people that sound and video could arrive through the internet while they were still watching or listening. It helped establish streaming as a mass-market idea. Then it became one of the most disliked programs on the PC. How did software that revealed the future become something users wanted to remove? And how did RealPlayer help create a world of streaming that eventually had no need for RealPlayer? The early web was not built for continuous media. Pages contained text, small images, and links. Audio files could be downloaded, but the listener normally had to wait for the entire file to arrive before hearing it. On a slow modem, a few minutes of sound could demand an unreasonable amount of time. Rob Glaser believed the internet could become a new distribution system. After spending a decade at Microsoft, he founded Progressive Networks in Seattle in 1994. Its original ambitions included creating a channel for progressive political content, but the larger opportunity soon became obvious. Before the internet could challenge radio or television, it needed a practical way to deliver sound. In April 1995, the company launched RealAudio. Instead of waiting for a complete file, RealAudio compressed sound heavily and played it as data arrived. The system collected a small reserve, or buffer, to survive brief interruptions. Quality was limited, especially through a 14.4 kilobit modem, but spoken words could cross the internet in real time. That changed the meaning of a website. A page was no longer only something to read, it could speak. News organizations and radio programmers began experimenting with the technology. In September 1995, internet users heard a live radio broadcast of a Seattle Mariners game against the New York Yankees. Only several hundred listeners could connect at once, and the sound was far from perfect. Yet distance had effectively disappeared. A local radio signal could now reach anyone with the software and an internet connection. RealAudio did not create every technical ingredient behind streaming, but it packaged the idea into a player, server system, and format that publishers could actually deploy. That made Progressive Networks one of the first companies to turn streaming into a commercial category. The company moved quickly. RealVideo arrived in 1997, and Progressive Networks became Real Networks. Audio and video were united inside RealPlayer. Major news, sports, and entertainment websites placed RealAudio and RealVideo links beside their articles. For users, the experience became instantly recognizable. Click the link, approve the browser plugin, watch RealPlayer open, wait for the buffer, hope nobody in the house picked up the telephone. The picture was tiny, the frame rate was low, the sound could resemble a distant radio, but this was the first glimpse of a radical idea. Media no longer needed to live on a cassette, compact disc, television channel, or downloaded file. It could arrive on demand. If you remember waiting for RealPlayer to buffer, subscribe to Pastware. We uncover the stories behind the technology you grew up with. By the end of the decade, RealPlayer seemed almost unavoidable. Real Networks claimed tens of millions of users, while thousands of publishers relied on its technology. Being early created a powerful cycle. Websites used real formats because audiences had the player. Audiences installed the player because websites used real formats. But the system contained a weakness that would later become critical. Real streaming depended on a proprietary chain. Publishers used real server technology and formats. Viewers needed real software. The company stood between the content and the audience. At first, that position looked like control. Eventually, it looked like friction. Real Networks gave away a basic player to build its audience while selling premium versions, server products, subscriptions, and other services. That model created conflicting incentives. The free player needed to be simple enough for everyone to install, but each installation was also an opportunity to promote an upgrade, collect registrations, advertise content, and pull users deeper into the Real ecosystem. Gradually, the player stopped behaving like a quiet tool. Different versions were criticized for changing file associations, adding background components, displaying promotional messages, encouraging paid upgrades, and making the free option harder to identify. The software wanted attention even when the user only wanted to play one clip. RealPlayer's message center became symbolic of the problem. What sounded like a place for useful updates could also deliver advertising. Years later, the Consumer Protection Project Stop Badware criticized versions of RealPlayer for failing to disclose advertising behavior and bundled software clearly enough before installation. Each individual annoyance might appear small. Together, they changed the relationship between the product and its users. RealPlayer had entered their computers because it was necessary. Now it seemed to be using that necessity to demand more space, more attention, and more control. Then came a far more serious breach of trust. In 1999, a security researcher discovered that RealJukebox, the company's music management software, transmitted information about listening habits together with a unique identifier. The data could include details about music stored or played on the computer. More than 13 million registered users were potentially affected, and the behavior had not been clearly disclosed in the privacy policy or license agreement. Real Networks said it had not stored or shared the information, apologized, and released a patch, but the distinction mattered less than the feeling it created. Software already accused of taking too many liberties had now been caught reporting information users did not know it was sending. RealPlayer's reputation changed from annoying to untrustworthy. At the same time, its technological lead was disappearing. Microsoft developed Windows Media and could place its player directly inside Windows. Apple continued expanding QuickTime. Other programs handled downloaded music with cleaner interfaces. Real Networks remained influential, but it now had to convince users to install something that competitors could distribute through an operating system or device. The conflict with Microsoft became an antitrust battle. Real Networks accused its former partner of using Windows to disadvantage competing media software. In 2005, the companies settled their disputes through agreements valued at $761 million. The settlement recognized how consequential the fight had become, but money could not restore RealPlayer's former position. The internet itself was changing faster than the player. Broadband reduced the need for extreme compression. Flash video and services such as YouTube moved playback directly into the browser. Later, browser standards made separate media plugins increasingly unnecessary. Users stopped caring which special player powered a clip. They expected to press play and have the video begin on the page. That was the future RealPlayer had predicted, but with the RealPlayer interface removed, content providers also gained alternatives. They no longer needed to commit to one company's format servers and desktop software. More widely sported codecs and browser-based delivery reduced the value of Real Networks controlling the entire chain. Real tried to adapt. It combined RealPlayer with RealJukebox in the Real One player, pursued subscription entertainment, developed the Rhapsody music service, added downloading and conversion tools, and repeatedly redesigned the product. Some of those businesses found audiences, but every added function made it harder for RealPlayer to recover the quality users increasingly valued most: invisibility. The best media software was becoming software people barely noticed. RealPlayer never completely disappeared. Modern versions still exist, now focusing on downloading, organizing, converting, and playing online video, but its name remains tied to the period when installing a media player could change more of the computer than expected. That reputation explains the central contradiction. RealPlayer succeeded because it was more than a player. It was a complete system for distributing, selling, and controlling internet media. Then it declined for almost the same reason. As streaming became universal, audiences no longer wanted a separate company standing visibly between them and the content. Real Networks helped prove that streaming could work. It showed publishers that live audio and video could travel through ordinary internet connections. It taught audiences to expect media on demand. It helped create the habits on which today's largest entertainment companies were built. But innovation did not guarantee affection. RealPlayer confused necessity with loyalty. It treated an enormous installed base as a business opportunity before earning enough trust to use it that way. The program became heavier and more intrusive while the technology it pioneered became simpler and more invisible. RealPlayer did not lose because streaming failed. It lost because streaming won. The software helped teach the internet how to play, then the internet learned to play without it.